Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to look at whether or not a given triangle on the graph is a right triangle or not using the slopes of the edges of the triangle, okay? So the edges of the triangle are simply the lines that make up the triangle that connect the vertices A, B, and C. And so we can find the slope of each of these lines by looking at the change in Y relative to the change in X, right? So if we go ahead and do that, I'll start off with the slope, let's say from point A to point B. We'll call that M of AB, right? The slope of the line AB. And we'll do that by y2 minus y1. So we'll do maybe, let's start with B. So we'll do -4 minus 3 over -1 minus 4. And that gives a slope of -7 over -5. Or if you'd rather, just 7 over 5, right? And now, before we get into the slopes of BC and AC, we can take a moment and think about what kind of slopes would have to be at play here for us to have triangle ABC be a right triangle, right? Now, a right triangle means a triangle having a 90-degree angle in it, a right angle, as one of its three angles. And for that to happen, we know that a 90-degree angle is formed by perpendicular lines intersecting at a point, right? Wherever two perpendicular lines intersect, a 90-degree angle is created in that corner, right? So really what we're checking to see is whether or not any of these pairs of lines, these pairs of edges, are perpendicular. And perpendicular lines, we know, have negative reciprocal slopes, right? So that's really what we're checking here. Are any of these slopes negative reciprocals of one another, right? That means negative flipped, right? So let's go ahead and compute the slope of the line from B to C. So again, change in Y, we'll do 2 minus -4. Well, that's not excuse me. 2 minus -4, right? And over -3 minus -1. And that'll be +6. Why am I so sorry, YouTube? -3 minus -1. There we go. So that becomes +6 over -3 minus -1 is like -3 plus 1, which is -2, right? And 6 over -2 we can write as simply -3. So this line is the slope of -3, and then finally the line from point C to point A, or from point A to point C, whichever way you want to look at it, we can find that again by looking at the change in Y or the change in X. So the change in Y is going to be 3 minus 2, right? Any slope is found by the change in Y over the change in X, right? Rise over run, if you want to think of it that way. So 3 minus 2 over 4 minus -3, and that is 1 over 7. And so we can clearly see here that none of these slopes are the negative reciprocal of one another. And so for that reason, we don't have any right angles, and so triangle ABC is not a right triangle. No, because no perpendicular edges means no right angles. And there we have it, right? So again, slope of the line is delta y over delta x, and so we compute the three slopes of the three edges of the triangle. We look to see if any of them are negative reciprocals of one another. That would insinuate that that would imply that we have perpendicular lines, and perpendicular lines intersect to make a 90-degree angle, which would make a right angle, which would make triangle ABC a right triangle, but that is not the case. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching.